All right. What's up, everyone? We're back with another episode of the Jellison podcast, and today I wanted to do something a little different. It is August 5th, 2020, by the time this comes out, which means it'll be officially 1 year since I started my podcast. I released the first episode on August 5th of 2019 with my friends Andrew Edmond, Ryan Plummer, and Derek Brown. So shout out to them. They're the ones that kind of got me started in this whole thing. But I just wanted to make a short, like 10, 15-minute video, or actually a podcast. This won't be available on YouTube. I just wanted to express how much it means to me to see all the people that have supported me, have sent me messages saying, keep up the good work, you're doing great things, that have bought merch off the store, that have shared my work, shared my podcast on their own social medias. Excuse me. And have just been talking to me and giving me words of encouragement and showing me their support. It truly means a lot. I mean, from where I was a year ago to where I am now, it's a 9 day. It's not even close. When I started my podcast, I was, to be honest, I was fucking terrible. Wasn't prepared for the first probably 10 podcasts. Um, I would say just kind of spitballing things and not really working hard at preparing and kind of half-assing everything and not working to get new guests. Just kind of staying in my bubble of my friends. I did have Hannah Helton on, um, which was kind of outside of my bubble, someone I didn't know. But other than that, I was just kind of staying comfortable, and you can't be comfortable in this life. To succeed, I think you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. It's something that guys like David Goggins and Jocko Willink have talked about a lot. You have to step out of your comfort zone. And when this whole COVID-19 stuff happened, is when I really got that fire under my ass to get going and really be motivated because I really didn't have anything else to do. If I'm being honest, just like everyone else, I would imagine. And so I ended up getting my first athlete on the podcast, Jordan Williams, who is also a type 1 diabetic. He's an MMA fighter. Got a fight coming up here in October, actually. And that kind of made me realize what I could do with this podcast. Um, I could grow it and talk to literally anyone in the world, um, and just create relationships that way. I also kind of use this podcast as a form of an internship, I guess, along with the Hammer and Rails blog that I write for. I kind of use these to prepare me for what I want to do. Excuse me, for what I want to do when I get older, which is either live off the money I make off the podcast or work for a big corporation like ESPN or Fox Sports or CBS Sports or probably not Barstool. I'm not a big fan of those guys, but I think you guys get the idea of the things that I want to do in the future. But yeah, so I kind of wanted to talk about the kind of the process of how I started my podcast, how I came up with the idea, uh, and all of that stuff. So I have to backtrack all the way to freshman year at Purdue. I came into Purdue as a secondary education specializing in social studies, which I really didn't want to do. I just did it because my GPA was kind of low coming out of high school. I think it was like a 3.2, 3.1, 3.2, somewhere in that range, which is pretty low. So I knew that I could get into the teaching program at Purdue fairly easily, since there aren't an abundance of applicants like in the field that I wanted to go into, which was athletic training. So I get into Purdue. Right when I step on campus, I'm like, I'm not doing this teaching stuff. I'm doing athletic training. So I took all the classes that I could that weren't restricted by your declared major, one of those weird things. And I ended up doing terrible that semester because I wasn't focused on school. I was being social. I was hanging out with my friends, staying out too late, things like that. Not waking up for class was a big one, and it kind of broke my spirit, I guess. I didn't really see a future for myself anymore after I got that news that I had basically flunked out. I ended up with 4 Fs, so I failed 4 classes, and then the one class that I didn't fail, I got a D in. So I was kind of shit out of luck. Put myself in a hole that I take all the responsibility for. It wasn't anyone else's fault. It was just my own being ignorant. And so I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do now. Like, don't think I can get back into the athletic training program unless I stay for damn near 5 or 6 years. Um, so I was kind of thinking about that, and then over winter break, I ended up going to my friend Cam Swatchka's house, and I thank God every day that I went over to his house that night because I ended up watching UFC 232, which was headlined by John Jones and Alexander Gustafsson, and Amanda Nunes against Chris Cyborg that night, and that kind of it didn't that night specifically didn't change my life. Nothing clicked that night, but it led to a whole bunch of events that ended up changing the trajectory. Damn, if I could talk. Of my life, of my career path, what I wanted to do, my aspirations, my motivations. So I watched that card at my friend's house, and I was like, damn, this MMA stuff's pretty cool. So I started getting into it, and then I kept getting into it and watching interviews and watching old fights, and I got obsessed. So then I started watching MMA all the time. I'd watch it every weekend. So during that time, I discovered the Joe Rogan Experience, which is another thing that I'm super happy was here. Um, at this point in my life, I think is really valuable for me. Um, just kind of inspired me. I was listening to his JRE MMA shows, which I enjoyed a lot, and that's how I was kind of introduced to him. I didn't. I mean, if you told me, "Hey, Joe Rogan has a podcast out in November of 2018," I would have been like, "Who the hell is that? I don't care. Like, get out of my face." Um, so then I started watching him, and it kind of became religious. I would watch it every single day on YouTube, of course, or listen on Apple Podcasts and all that stuff. Um, so I started watching his shows, and I became obsessed with Rogan. So I was watching it every day, and I was like, "Damn, I love this dude. He's super relatable. He's a great interviewer, and he has dope guests on his podcast." So at the end of last summer, so July 2019, I was I was listening to an episode. I forget which episode it was. I'll have to go back and try to find that out. But he was talking about how more people should start podcasts, and I was like, you know what, he's right. I should start my own. So I was like, all right, screw it. I came up with the idea at work. I was with my cousin McGuire Plummer at the time. He was the first person I told that I wanted to start a podcast, and he was all on board. So I started spitballing ideas to all my friends and asking around, telling people that I was going to start doing this. Talk to my parents about it. Um, they were all for it. They just wanted me to be committed to it. At the beginning, I didn't really do. I recorded my first episode in August of 2019. I didn't record my second. Actually, I did record my second episode in August, but it was 2 or 3 weeks later, like the last week of August, I believe. And then the third, fourth, fifth episodes, all that stuff, they were all super spread out. One would be like a week apart. The next three would be like 3 weeks from that time, and all be in the same week. And I was just all messed up with that, and I was really only having my friends on. Um, like I talked about earlier, I really didn't step out of that bubble. Uh, so then I started getting more and more comfortable, which I guess was a blessing in disguise because I was getting more and more comfortable on the microphone, kind of projecting out what I was doing. and just getting that experience with people that I was comfortable with, and then like I talked about, you at some point you have to make the leap, and that's when Jordan Williams, he's a big he's a big influence in my life, someone I look up to, someone I talk to regularly about how he's doing during this whole pandemic. How he's training. I know he just got injured, so I was talking to him about that the other day. Um, so that he kind of set me up for success in a way. So after I had Jordan on, um, I had, I mean, I've damn near had everyone on. I've had doctors, I've had fellow YouTubers, podcasters, comedians, athletes, MMA fighters, football players, basketball players, coaches, which is coming soon. I'm not going to say who it is, but check the podcast out on Friday for a special surprise. And it just I'm blown away by how many people are actually willing to do this, willing to come on my podcast and talk to a dumb 20-year-old doesn't really know anything about life at this point. It kind of I don't know. I I'm kind of at a loss for words when I think about how lucky I am to be able to do a podcast with people that I respect, people that I enjoy watching compete. Given that my podcast is mostly sports, um, I do branch out a little bit to health and other areas that are going on, or other areas and some things that are going on in the world today. But I mean, to have the people I've had on, like Bernard Pollard, Vince Edwards, Taylor Tannenbaum, Leonie Boudreau, Dean Thomas, Eve Edwards. I mean, I could keep going on and on. All the people I've had on, it's mind-boggling. If you had told me 2 years ago that I'd start a podcast and I talked to Vince Edwards and Bernard Pollard, I'd be like, "What are you talking about? I don't even know what a podcast is." Um, so, I mean, at the end of the day, it just I mean, it boils down to how hard you work, how hard you grind. Um, in this industry, I guess you could call it. You have to kind of be annoying. You have to pester people. You have to force your way into things. You have to work hard and show people that you can do it. And then after you show people you can do it, you'll start to get the good interviews. And that's what I've kind of found within the last few months. People really respect when you're grinding, when you're hustling, trying to pursue your dreams. People are more likely to help you out than if you say, "Hey, I made these shirts for a podcast. Yeah, whatever." I mean, the people that bought my podcast shirts know that I've grinded and I work my ass off for every podcast that I do. Um, and I think that this podcast really lit a fire under me that I've never been this motivated to do something in my entire life. I truly feel like I've found my calling um, in podcasting and interviewing and writing as well. A big shout out to Travis Miller. It's kind of off topic, not podcast related, but he gave me the opportunity to write for the Purdue sports blog Hammer and Rails in December of 2019. So this past December, and I mean, I've done more cool stuff in the last half a year than I have in my entire life before this. I got to cover Purdue basketball games. Um, I mean, it's no doubt, Hammer and Rose has no doubt helped me get some of the guys I've had on from Purdue and things like that. So, I mean, I don't want to harp on this too long. I don't want to talk too long, bore you guys. But, I mean, just before I go, I want to give out a few thank yous. First of all, thank you to my parents, mom and dad. If you guys are listening, I love you. I don't know if I'd be here or where I'd be if I didn't have you guys pushing me and helping me and supporting me through all this. And yeah, and they've been a huge support system for me. They've supported me since day one. They've been behind me. They've always been encouraging, and while also giving me stern talkings at times, trying to get me back on track, help me regain my focus and things of that nature. So, I mean, without them, none of this would be here. Um, I mean, it's those are probably the two most important people in my life by far. Um, but aside from them, huge thank yous to AJ Vetter, who's been helping me with marketing and promotion and the social media aspect of the podcast and growing and expanding it and trying to get sponsorships and things of that nature, just trying to help me um, improve the overall quality of the podcast. I mean, it's grown leaps and bounds since we started chatting about things. He's a former Pike guy, doing his thing now in Chicago. And also a big thank you to David Perrota, who started joining me on episode 5 or 6. I can't remember. I have to go back and look. And he's been helping me produce the podcast and edit them and make them all sound nice. And I mean, it's night and day compared to episode like 4 and 5, where I mean the damn microphone wasn't even working that I had. Um, so he figured that out and we fixed that. I mean the podcast was sounded 1,000 times better after he started helping me and teaching me things as well. Um, so huge shout out to him. I don't know what the heck I would do without him either. And then just kind of like the main supporting people in my life. If I miss someone, I apologize, but the main people have been Grant, Jade, Brewer, Zach, Nail, um, Jaden, Plumber, Bryce, Derek, Will, Spencer, Joey. I mean, there's too many people to to kind of specifically point out and say thank you to. But if you've shown me any type of support, if you've come on the podcast, I want to say thank you to all those people that have come on. It truly means a lot that you give me the opportunity to have a discussion with you or interview you or anything that we've talked about in the past when you've come on. And then, I mean, lastly, just thank you to everyone who's listening to this. Everyone who's liked and commented and shared my stuff on social media, who've texted me and messaged me on social media individually and said, "Hey, I love what you're doing. Keep it up." I mean, those type of messages just they make my day, and I'm truly grateful for all the fans. I guess you could call them. I'm not really used to having quote unquote fans, but all the fans that have kind of been with me from the beginning. I mean, I love you guys. It's the Dub Club for life, and all the fans that I've made along the way. I appreciate you guys too. I love you guys, and hopefully we keep this thing going, keep this thing rolling, and start balling out.